Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. I hope you're all happy, dippy, zippy, clippy, nippy, whatever you want to be. Welcome to Studio Memoirs. This week we're going to be talking about the phenomenal Chad Wackerman, drummer extraordinaire, wonderful man. Now, my history with Chad goes back, probably when I first noticed him was round about Metal Fatigue. I know he's played with Zappa and he's done a whole bunch of stuff, but it was really Metal Fatigue, that track that I remember Dick Nolan played it for me. The bass player, Dick Nolan, and we were in his front room and it was down, get down, get down, and he did some filler, went down, and he had such there was such spark to his playing. It was like the molecules were going like that, and Chad was. Chad played with Zappa for ages, and he was doing that thing then. But what you don't know about Chad is that, because he's got a reputation for being, technical and all that. But, dude, he's not just that. He's a real sweet drummer. Like, Chad can just sit on a pocket as good as anybody. Now, let's go back to drummers. I want to give a little bit of thing on drummers first, because I started off on drums when Ozzy Osbourne my brother used to play with Ozzy Osbourne, right? And Ozzy gave me a set of drumsticks from Bill Ward. I think I was about 9 years old or something like that. And it started my love affair off with the drums. I used to hit on the back of my mother's couch and chair. It had a great smack on it for a snare drum. I could hit the stick halfway down here and get a kick drum. Boom, and I could get a real smack, like slack. You remember them like crappy, like plastic leather, like kind of fake leather couches they used to have in the council houses? I used to play all these, Genesis tunes and Gary Glitter beats and all that stuff on the thing. And so that started off my love affair with the drums. And I actually played drums when I was 11 years old, I guess almost professionally, down at a club called the Tarnside Club in Braystones. It was like a beach club. It was full of like violence and like angst and like all that stuff. But it was, and I used to play with a guy called Peter Lockhart. Peter, he was the same age as me. I think we were 11. And Peter would play the organ. He'd play like, all my love, all my kissing, you don't know. And I used to play left-handed. So I was going, I only knew one beat. So it was, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was the greatest thing. And I remember I used to watch the bands come in. I was always interested in the drummers. There were cabaret bands. We had this one guy come in called Mad Mitch, and he just used to come in by himself on the drums, and he'd do all these things on the drums. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so the drums were always the thing for me. I always noticed them. Like Lenny White on Return to Forever. The Tide and the Jester thing. Down, 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 down. Brilliant stuff, man. And Barry Moore Barlow from Jethro Tull on the Minstrel and the Gallery. Me and Dick Nolan were big fans of the drums and that. And obviously Phil Collins with the Genesis stuff. Alan White on Sound Chaser Relay. So I was definitely noticing drummers. There's no doubt about that. I was totally into the drums like that. And, I used to love playing it. The thing is, though, I think people think they can play drums. I've often heard Peter Gabriel saying he can play drums. Dude, you can't play the drums. You can play a beat, but there's drummers just have a thing about them. You're either a drummer or you're not. And the other thing I love about drummers is they're supportive of each other. Whereas guitar players are always trying to look at me. Drummers are like, hey man, yeah, I'm going to go and see Brian. Well, who's Brian? Well, he's a drummer. Yeah, we kind of hung out. And drummers talk with each other. They're like hang out, right? Tony Beard, because Tony Beard was phenomenal drummer, but he used to oh yeah, man, yeah, Francis, I'm going to go see so-and-so, yeah, he's a drummer. And the drummers would hang. They hang out. Drummers like each other. They like each other. They really do, for real. It's kind of like when people pretend, say, I can play bass. You can't play the bass. Bass is a psychological thing. Sure, you can play the notes like a guitar player with a pick and go do, do, do. That's not what a bass player is. A bass player is that kind of negotiation between the singer and the guitar player. It's usually that. But bass is a personality thing. It's a way of being. It isn't just so is guitar. Guitar's a way of being, or that flashy, like guns. I call it gunslinger guitar. So drums. So I have a history of drums, and so we were doing the It Bites band, and I had Bjorn Frankland on drums, who was phenomenal. He did an unbelievable job because he played the It Bites stuff note for note. It was actually amazing. Bob Dalton on the drums. Bob was an amazing drummer. Bob was killer, dude. And he played the drums. There's like categories of drummers I have. You've got that Roger Taylor from Queen. Bob was one of them. He was solid, absolutely solid as a rock. Way more technical than you think. Because Roger Taylor is, when you listen to soloed Roger Taylor drums, Roger's got stuff going on, brother. He's got stuff going down. Bob was like that. Bob was real solid to play with, Bob. And Bjorn was like that. Like the stuff going on. Like just really, really solid as a rock drummers. And so Bjorn was playing drums for the It Bites. Pete Jones was doing the same thing too. So Pete was on the keyboards. Pete's another one. He's incredibly musical. Unbelievably musical. Like, he's not just playing a few chords. Like, there's music in him. There's music in these people. And they left the band. They got to the end, because it's a lot of work. When you do them It Bites tours, man, it is for me. So when they left, I said, all right, I'm just going to do a whole new fresh start, whole new vibe. I'm going to go for it. And I was speaking to Phil, and I said, listen, we need to get somebody like Chad Wackerman or somebody like that type. I want to go out there. I want to like start, doing some stuff and playing some stuff. And I kept saying that word over and over again. Can he do that like Chad Wackerman thing? I kept on saying that all the time. And we found drummers who could, play great and all that, but they couldn't do the Chad Wackerman thing. He's more importantly, that's not what they did. And that's a really important thing to know for all you musicians out there. When you start looking for musicians, don't get a bass player and tell him to play sax. Because I'm guilty of that all the time. I get people in because of my friends or something, or I like them, or I've done one project with them before and it was great. And then you try to pull them into another project and they can't. Not that they can't do that, they don't do that. It's like, they just don't do that. That's not what they do. And so don't hire them for that. It's like, get people in their naturalness. People do things that's natural to them, right? There's a natural thing that people do. Some guys do metal. Don't get them guys in to play banjo. You know what I'm saying? And so I kept saying over and over again, I'd find someone like Chad Wackerman. And I'd watch all these videos online and somebody would say, what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? But as I can watch drummers and I can see that they're not musical. They can play in time and all that, but they're not really playing music. And that was an important thing to me for this project. It needed to be a musical drummer, like somebody who's actually hearing music. There's a way to play that's musical. It's full of dynamics and it's full of grace and everything like that. And I couldn't find anybody with that who's also at the same time could go out dangerous. Because there's ways because I wanted to do some like wild, some whacked out jamming stuff. I wanted to get into some of that. And not every drummer can do that. Not because they're bad or wrong. No, they just don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't, I'm not saying like, anybody's better. It's just as people just do stuff. Well, every time I just kept on going back to the same thing. Chad Wackerman, Chad Wackerman, Chad Wackerman, Chad Wackerman. And so I picked up the phone and I just said, bollocks, I'm going to call Chad Wackerman. Now, I'd known Chad because Guthrie, Marco Miniman and Brian from the Aristocrats had invited, they do like a convention, the Aristocrats convention, and they used to invite, some of the musicians who they liked to as like guest people. Well, Guthrie invited me. I was Guthrie's guest guy on his thing. Marco invited Chad, and Brian invited Michael Manring, who's, dude, we need to do something about him as well. That guy's amazing. So I got to play with Chad and it was like, oh man, like he's and this guy's just full of music. Like, he's absolutely full of music. So I called Chad up, and because these type of names, because you hear them playing with Zappa, and you hear them playing with like, Holdsworth and the Black and all these people, and I mean, they play with everybody. Eric Clapton, and they're doing, it's that lot. You know what I mean? It's like them upper tier session guys, and they are upper tier session guys for a reason, because, so I called Chad and I said, Chad, I need the da 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 da. And he was the nicest guy you could ever meet in your life. Like, this is the sweetest man you'll ever meet. And such a sweetheart, man. Damn. Like, just a really good, gentle, solid, no bullshit human being. So even just talking to him, I'd love, and he was no problem. He was very incredibly professional. He's obviously had years of, being like a working musician like that, because for people like myself, we're doing our own thing. We're the narcissist lot. We're doing our own thing. So we don't really get that much of a chance to, we're not with, I've got a gig on Thursday, I've got a gig on Friday, I've got a gig on Saturday, and they're all different gigs, and, them like working musicians guys. But Chad was real professional. And it blew my mind just how easy it was to work with him. We agreed a price like that, and it was, he's not cheap, but here's the thing: you can either get somebody in, for like, a quarter of the price of Chad Wackerman, and sit there and try to teach him how to be Chad Wackerman, or just get Chad Wackerman and be done with it. Like, if you want Chad Wackerman, get Chad Wackerman. So we set up the session. And it was going to be an analog session, because I was going to do a new It Bites album, and that, you're already onto a loser at that point, because nobody's going to accept another It Bites album. They're just not. It's just the way it is. But I'm such a bastard for all that stuff. I like to pit myself against things. I've done it all my life. If it's easy, I'm usually not interested. I like the danger of things. I always like to. It's like, well, this could just not work. And so I set off writing, the It Bites stuff, and because there's a way to write that stuff. The melodies are a certain way. There's a way to approach it, and so I set off doing that, and I was sending Chad like different bits of what I had, and then we'd set the date to record an analog album at Rockfield Studios in Wales, which is an amazing place. Everybody's recorded there. It's full of history, from like Oasis to like Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen, and like, there's all sorts of stuff. So we wanted to do analog, and that is definitely the best analog game in town. So we went to Rockfield. We picked Chad up at the airport, and they had 4 days to record a full album, right? 4 days to record a full album. Chad came in. He had some notes. We sat down. We started playing. First take, bang, done. Like, literally done. We just went back and listened in. The drums were perfectly in tune. He knew how to tune the drums perfectly in tune. They were just perfect. They're absolutely perfect. It just sounded like Chad Wackerman. And every single song, we did like 3 songs a day. He was just, we'd just like warm up a bit, do the thing, and then bang, done. I literally didn't see the guy make one even slight mishap in the entire sessions that we had. Not one. It was bang on from day one. Every single thing that he played was musical. It was I didn't see him forget anything. I actually didn't see him like forget a part. He knew the songs better than I did. It was insane, and it just went bang, 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 bang. It was that good, and you can ask him this if you ever see him, or ask anybody who's heard on the sessions. We all stood up and gave him a round of applause when he finished the last song. When he walked in, we literally gave him a round of applause. It was that good. And let me tell you, I'll actually put some instrumental, because I'm finishing that album right now, because I kind of messed it up a bit, and we're putting it to analog. We're going to vinyl with it, so I'll put some clips up there so you can listen to it. But that was, so in the sessions, he knew how to record it beautifully. The drums were tuned. He never forgot a part. And he was an incredibly nice man. Like, he was a seriously nice guy, Chad. In fact, he still is. He still is. The sad thing is that, like, he's that busy that, you don't really get a chance to, like, while he's there in the studio with you can have, like, a personal relationship with him. But when he goes, he's just gone again. He's like, like this week he's playing with whoever. But to cut a long story short, Chad just made my life easy. Like, it was, the drums were tuned perfectly. I mean, you just let this guy in and that's it. It's like the song, you don't even have to think. Like, I didn't tell him anything to play. You know, I told him basic riffs we got going on and stuff. He just did the whole thing himself. And it was, every single thing he played was exactly what I wanted. I used to shout to him, more whacker. That's what I'd shout. Like, if he wasn't mixing it up enough, I'd shout, Chad, I'd press on the button on the studio, Chad, we need a bit more whacker on the end of there. So he'd take it a bit further out than what it was going. And, he'd do some more whacker. But Chad Wackerman, I mean, there's not really much you can say about him, to be honest. Phenomenal, like zillion % phenomenal. Like an absolute gentleman, brilliant technician. The feel, absolutely amazing feel, sweet sound. Everything was in time. Whether you play to a click or you don't play to a click, it's just done. It's signed, sealed and delivered. You go in there, Chad plays, you play Chad the song and he just plays it and that's it. It's over. It's over, like for real, it's done. And so naturally, when I come to put the band together for the Next It Bites tour, there was only one drummer that could actually do it, for me anyway, because it was such a mind-blowing experience in the studio with him. I thought, well, what could it be like live? So I called Chad up and I went, Chad, I want you to come on. No, I didn't say, I said, Chad, you're coming on tour with me whether you like it or not. And we had a laugh about it, but, he agreed to come on a tour. And we had to base the tour on his availability because he just wasn't available. The guy's just run off his feet. Like, he's out every week. So we looked about 6-7 months ahead and he found a little stretch of time that he wasn't working and we booked it then. And Chad showed up for rehearsals. I didn't have to say a thing. I told him the songs we're going to be playing. I sent him all the It Bites songs. I sent him the live versions, the studio versions. He got off the plane. We picked him up. Even jet lagged, he set off in the studio and he just played it. Dude, he just played everything right. Like literally bang on. Maybe a couple of moments here and there where I'd say like, well, try it like this, or I'm going to change that section or something, but basically it was just effortless and it was the same thing. It just sounded amazing. But there was one thing that I really loved to do. Every night we would do a section in Vampires. It Bites, for all of you who don't know, It Bites has a song called Vampires, and me and Chad used to do a jam session in the middle of it, but it wasn't a jam like you'd normally jam. There's different ways to jam. You can like work out all your solos and just do your stuff and pretend it's a jam when it really isn't a jam. It's just you playing all the scales you've learned for the past 17 years. You can do that. Or you can do, more like what the blues guys do. You just don't actually know what's coming next and you just go for it. You're just out on a wing, but like kind of how Frank Zappa does. He's just, Frank didn't work his stuff out the night before. You're just on the edge. That type of jamming. I remember me and David Sanchez used to jam like that. It was a gentle jamming, and I was finger picking stuff, and we were jamming with like chords and piano sections because we didn't know what was going to happen. There's a song called "Through My Father's Eyes." If you go and listen to that, you'll hear the jam that me and David did on that. I'll put a link on there. In the middle of that song, and that song is the first take me and David did. It was the first take. And we just hit it off. Me and David were just looking at each other's eyes. The thing is when you jam like this, you have to be fearless because you could drop the bits at any minute. And literally, the second you think, you'll ruin it. The second you think, I swear to God, because you can't think. You've just got to just go. There'll be musicians listening to this now will know exactly what I'm talking about. You haven't got a clue what's coming next because you're not playing from your mind, you're playing from your spirit or your soul. And so I would get on stage with Chad every night and we'd have these sections where we'd just, they were different every night. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. But one of them is, I'm going to play it on here actually, but one of them is this. Have a listen to this and you'll see what I mean. This might take the memoirs of a bit longer than what it normally does, but it's worth it to watch. And more in particular, watch Chad. So this is like a jamming rhythm. I'm looking at Chad and I'm he's fighting off what I'm doing. I'm sending rhythms to him all the time and he's kicking back. Just watch the interplay between what happens. It's great. But it's not like a normal jam where you go like, there's like it's a whole whacked out thing. All right, check it out.
these days and nights will soon be over.
So that was my time with Chad Wackerman in the studio and live, and I gotta tell you, man, it was just perfection. The guy's perfection. Nicest guy in the world, on time, in time, gentleman, knows every single song you need to do, figured it all out. And you know, I can't speak highly enough of this guy. If you ever see Chad Wackerman in your town, you go see Chad, because Chad, you're gonna be pushed to find somebody like this. You know, this is one of them guys. He's definitely got his thing going on, and he's just an amazing drummer, amazing man. So press that subscribe button, people. Come on, help a brother out. Press that subscribe button, and tell all your friends to come and log into the Francis Dunnery official YouTube channel, and I will have some more stories back here for you next week. Have a great day. Happy Easter. I'll see you then.